I traveled 4 hours to attend my nephew's baptism, but when I arrived, my sister asked me to leave. I silently handed her an envelope and left. Minutes later, she opened it empty, revealing a note that read, "Check the shared account." The shouting started before I even left the parking lot. I drove for 4 hours to attend my nephew's baptism. I thought I was going to be one of the most important guests. Not because I needed attention, in fact, I hate being the center of attention, but because I felt I had earned it. Valeria wouldn't have made it through the past year without my help. When the mortgage company started calling, I was the one who transferred $3,000 that same day. When her husband lost his job and they were without electricity and heat for 3 days, who paid to have the services restored? I did. And when that medical bill arrived that she swore the insurance would cover, I was the one who took care of that too. So yes, I expected to be greeted with a smile. Perhaps even a simple thank you would suffice. It was his son's christening, and I arrived dressed to sit in the front row with the godparents. Before leaving home that morning, I slipped an envelope and a new card into my jacket pocket. What she thought would be another generous check from me. The church was large, gleaming, and packed. I arrived just before the ceremony began, parked away from the crowd, and straightened my tie as I got out of the car. Valeria was already outside. She should have noticed by then that something was wrong. She wasn't greeting the guests or helping anyone get settled. She was simply standing there with her arms crossed, looking at me as if she were waiting for me. She walked toward me without a smile, without a greeting. She just said, in a dry, calculated tone, "It's best if you leave. Let's not make a scene." I stared at her for a few seconds, waiting for her to say it was a joke or that there was some urgent situation inside. But no. She stood firm, as if she were in charge of filtering entry to an exclusive place I wasn't a part of. I didn't argue. I took the envelope out of my jacket, handed it to her silently, turned around, and went back to the car. Not a word. He probably thought I was offended, that I'd just stay in the car playing the victim. But the truth is, I didn't care about the whole thing anymore. What mattered to me was what came next. I turned off the engine and sat in silence, staring into space. I could hear laughter in the distance, people entering the church. I thought about how hard it had been to open my eyes to that reality. How long I'd let Valeria play with all of us, and how our parents had always supported her. Over and over again, 10 minutes later, I heard a door bang. She stormed out, walking quickly, her heels clicking, the envelope clutched in her hand as if it were burning hot. She was shouting into the phone, visibly distraught. I already knew what she had read. There was no check inside the envelope. Just a sheet of paper with a clear message, "Check your shared account." That account we had used for emergencies. The account I had fed with money, which she emptied without a second thought. That very morning, I transferred everything to a private account, created a new savings account, changed the passwords, and locked it completely. It had reached its limit. I was still yelling when I saw my dad's truck arrive. I couldn't help but laugh. He called him as soon as he read the note. They were going to surround me, pressure me like they always did, and I knew it. But I wasn't going to move. I wanted them to come, to look me in the face and try to use the same old manipulations, the ones I'd swallowed since adolescence. I remained calm, watching as everything unfolded. I had no idea what kind of day I had in store for them. My father slammed on the brakes, taking up 2 parking spaces. His old pickup truck still had its engine running. I watched him from my car, arms crossed and window slightly open. I didn't flinch. My mother got out on the passenger side, immediately pointing at me as if I were part of a search and rescue team. Valeria made exaggerated gestures towards them, shouting something I didn't hear, but she didn't need to. Her body language screamed victim. From my seat, the scene had an almost comical air. The 3 of them approached my car. My father in front, Valeria 2 steps behind, as if this were a courtroom scene and he were her defense attorney. She leaned toward the window and spoke in a low voice, as if worried about causing a scene. Ironic, considering my family thrives on drama. "Are you seriously going to do this today?" On your nephew's baptism day. I didn't answer right away. I looked at the three of them. Mom with her arms crossed, Valeria pretending to cry, Dad waiting for me to give him some absurd explanation. So, I said calmly, I gave him an envelope at a family event. That's what people do at baptisms, right? My mother exploded, don't be sarcastic, Bruno. You emptied the joint account. Valeria has bills to pay. She was counting on that money to cover the mortgage this week. What's wrong with you? I kept a close eye on Valeria. She didn't say a word. She just stood there, mouth pressed tight, as if she couldn't believe this was happening. But the truth was, she did believe it. That's why she ran out as soon as she opened the envelope. I knew perfectly well why I did it. What I didn't imagine was that I would actually do it. I let the silence linger. Then I opened the glove compartment and took out a folded piece of paper. I lifted it just enough for them to see the numbers in bold. $4,000. The real check. I never tore it up. I had it with me. Were you going to give her that? My mother asked, her eyes wide, as if I'd just shown her the winning lottery ticket. That was the plan. If only she hadn't told me to leave the moment she saw me. Valeria stepped forward. Did you come all this way just to punish me? No, I came to celebrate your son. I brought a gift with me. When I arrived, she greeted me with a tense expression. You'd better leave, let's not make a scene, she said. I didn't argue. I silently handed him the envelope, turned around, and left. About 10 minutes later, he opened it. It was empty. There was only one note that said, check your joint account. The shouting started before I could even leave the parking lot. I had traveled for 4 hours believing I was going to be an important part of the event, not because I was seeking the spotlight, I hate being the center of attention, but because I had earned it. Without me, Valeria wouldn't have made it through last year. I was the one who transferred $3,000 the very day the mortgage problem started. When the electricity and heat were cut off because her husband lost his job, I was the one who paid to have them reconnected. Even when a medical bill came up that she swore the insurance would cover, she wasn't the one who sorted it out. It was me, always me, and yet, when I stepped back or didn't offer immediate help, I was treated like I was bitter, as if money were more important than family. No one stopped to think how much I'd already given. No one asked how any of this affected me. Valeria crossed her arms and demanded, at least let me back into the account, even if it's empty. My mother immediately agreed, that's reasonable, Bruno. You shouldn't cut him off so abruptly. I looked at them all. Should I think about it? I said. I shouldn't have said that. In this family, thinking about it wasn't a barrier. It was like leaving blood in the water. An invitation to keep the pressure on. And they did. They stood by my car, murmuring among themselves like teenagers caught doing something wrong. I rolled the window halfway up, turned on the air conditioning, and left them there, trapped in their little circle of disappointment. Valeria looked at me as if waiting for me to roll the window down, to give her the check, to apologize. As if she believed I was going to give in, like so many other times. But that day, there was nothing soft about me. My hands were firm on the steering wheel, my eyes fixed straight ahead, waiting for them to give up. Finally, she spun around on her heels and drove off toward the church, clattering with every step as if she wanted everyone to hear her fury. My father said something quietly to my mother before following her. She lingered a moment longer. She gave me that look full of disappointment she used when she thought I had let the family down. Then he left too. I waited a few more minutes and drove off. I didn't go back home. Not yet. I needed to disappear for a while. I went to a small shopping arcade nearby and parked in front of a supermarket. I bought a coffee I didn't need and sat down to watch a couple argue over a parking space. That's when something hit me. Something I hadn't thought about in months. The car. The silver 2011 Honda Civic I'd driven for almost 8 years. I'd given it to Valeria and her husband the year before, when they were left with only one vehicle after that little accident he had. I remember that conversation perfectly. He was apologizing, she was crying, and I said, "It doesn't matter, keep it." I had planned to sell it, but helping the family seemed more important. They never treated it as a loan, nor did they thank me for it. It simply became theirs. We didn't change the ownership, and for a few months I continued paying the insurance until I realized they hadn't even taken out their own policy. At that moment, I took it out of my coverage. Not a word from them. I looked for the documents on my phone. It was still in my name. No transfers, no liens. Legally, it was still mine. I called the same tow truck I'd used once when a neighbor had taken over my parking space for 2 weeks. I gave them the license plate, make, model, and exact location, the small back lot next to the dumpsters, where Valeria and her husband used to park to avoid being seen from the front. The guy told me they'd be there in 45 minutes. I gave him my details and asked him to let me know when everything was done. In the meantime, I sipped my cold coffee and checked old messages. Valeria sent me chain texts asking for money. Never an apology, never any intention of paying anything back. I thought I'd feel guilty. That wasn't the case. 40 minutes later, my phone vibrated. Everything had gone well. The car was on its way to the impound lot, where it would remain in my name until I decided what to do with it. As I pictured Valeria smiling in the church, completely unaware that her ride was being towed, I knew she was about to receive her second big surprise of the day. And this time, I couldn't blame anyone else. I stayed in that parking lot longer than necessary. Not because I was trapped. I wanted to enjoy the silence. No messages, no hysterical calls. Just tranquility, something I hadn't felt in a long time. As I was about to go home, I opened Facebook out of habit. I saw a post from Valeria. She had already uploaded a whole album, photos of the christening, her light blue dress, the baby in a white outfit covered in lace that looked like it came from a play. Everyone was smiling. My parents were beside her, proud, as if nothing had happened. The caption read, "Grateful for the love, the faith, and those who are there when it really matters." A subtle hint. I almost laughed, but something caught my attention. The last image wasn't loading properly. I refreshed the page. The album stopped. The group photo I had titled "The Whole Family" disappeared. Only a few remained, as if someone had torn pages from an album. The text was also incomplete, as if I had stopped writing mid-sentence. I kept refreshing. Nothing. That's when I knew something had happened. Before I could even imagine what, my phone rang. Unknown number. I don't usually answer, but something told me I should. It was Valeria's husband. He didn't waste any time. "Where's the car?" I replied calmly. "It's still registered in my name." I gave it to him because he needed it, not because it belonged to him. But after what happened today, I understood it was time to get him back. I didn't need to raise my voice, at least not yet. He simply asked how he could do that on the very day of my nephew's baptism. How could she leave them stranded, without transportation, with a baby? And then she uttered a phrase that paralyzed me. "Valeria told everyone that you gave her that account. That it was a gift. That it was hers." I remained silent. He continued. "Apparently, he's been telling everyone for months that I gave him access as a way to make up for not attending the baby shower. That it was my idea. She said she wanted me to have something stable since I wasn't involved. My parents believed it. That story took shape over so long that now I understand why Mom always reacted as if I was the one overstepping the mark when she talked about setting boundaries. Or why Dad told me I had no right to exclude her. Valeria fabricated a whole story in which I was the cold brother trying to buy her redemption, and everyone believed it. I hung up without replying. I went straight to the bank. I sat down with a representative, showed them my ID, and asked them to close the joint account immediately. I wanted them to deactivate her card, flag the account for suspicious activity, and send her an official closure notice to her home address. I could have done it weeks ago, but I wanted to believe I was just being careless. I was wrong. She knew exactly what she was doing. While the employee was processing everything, another detail came to mind. Valeria's husband had posted that he had a job interview. I checked on LinkedIn. The job was on the other side of town. Without the car, without that account, they were stuck. I left the bank with a closing slip in my hand. It was like lifting a weight I'd carried for years without realizing it. For a moment, the silence returned, and it felt liberating. But I knew it wouldn't last. Not only would there be complaints, there would be pleas. And they came soon enough. I woke up to my phone vibrating non-stop. 4 missed calls. 3 voicemails. All before 7 a.m. First my mother, then my father, then Valeria twice. That kind of sequence makes it clear they were together, debating who would try to convince me first. I didn't listen to the audio recordings. It wasn't necessary. The text messages filled in the gaps. Bruno, we need to talk. This is serious. Please don't ignore us. I have a baby. I have no way to get to work. Please don't do this. You're not thinking straight. This isn't you. Just let me use the account until Friday. Please. Only until Friday. The last message was sent by Valeria. It was a screenshot of her bank statement showing a $217 overdraft. Below it, a crying emoji and a photo of the baby sitting on the floor, wearing only a diaper, as if that would convince me. Same old story, first pity, then pressure. An hour later, Mom called again. This time I answered. Not because I wanted to hear her, but because I knew that if I didn't, they would keep calling. Are you really going to do this to your sister? That was his opening line. No greeting, no intention of talking. Just accusation. She kept talking without pausing. She told me that Valeria was humiliated, that she had to ask a neighbor for a ride to work, that they no longer had money for gas, that she spent the night crying, that stress could be dangerous when you have a baby. And then, the phrase she had been saving. Your father and I think you should talk to someone. This behavior isn't like you. There it was. The change of tactics. When blame didn't work, they moved on to implying that something was wrong with me. As if setting boundaries after years of abuse was a sign of mental instability. I answered calmly. I told her it was fine, that I simply wasn't going to let them take advantage of me anymore. That I didn't owe Valeria or anyone else money forever just for not having children. And just when I thought the call would end in silence, Mom blurted out another sentence. If this is about the car, you already have it back. But you can't punish a mother like that. He's your nephew. But it wasn't about the car. It was about how easily they manipulated the facts, how they made me the bad guy the moment I stopped hitting them. They didn't want to understand. They just wanted to regain access. And they would use any emotional argument to achieve it. That same afternoon, while I was working from home, the doorbell rang. I looked out and saw the Honda parked across my driveway. Nobody was there. Just the car and a crumpled up piece of fabric under the windshield wiper. Inside, a note. You want control? Fine, take it. No keys, no explanation. Just more drama, this time in the form of a car. They had clearly gone to the impound lot, paid to get it back, and left it there as if throwing a tantrum. What they didn't know was that I still had the spare key. I walked over, unlocked it, and moved it to the back of the garage. I didn't even text them. That night, Valeria called again. She was crying, in a state of complete collapse. She said she was about to lose her job, that she couldn't miss work again, that everything was falling apart. She begged me to at least let her use the account for a few days. She said she just needed to make it to Friday. Her voice cracked as if she were holding the baby while she spoke. I didn't yell, I didn't lecture. I just said, I'll think about it. And the moment I heard her thank you, I knew I'd made another mistake. Because for Valeria, those 4 words meant that the door was still ajar. That her influence still existed, albeit weaker. I barely slept that night. Every time my phone rang, I feared it was another message. Another plea. Another manipulation. I spent over an hour staring at the last message without replying. And finally, I wrote it down. Without any corrections. Without a doubt. A line that took me years to formulate. I've thought it through. The answer is no. I pressed send, placed the phone face down on the table, and went out into the garden. I didn't need to see the reaction. I already knew it. First would come the surprise, because Valeria always thought I would never completely leave. Then, the anger. And then, the usual guilt, the one they threw down like a rope, hoping I'd take it. But this time I didn't. What was strange was the silence that followed the message. No immediate calls, no insistent notifications. For a moment, I even thought that perhaps they had accepted it. That silence was their answer. That was his way of letting it go. But it wasn't like that. That same night, my father called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice sounded calm. Too calm. As if she had rehearsed what she was going to say. "Why don't you come over for dinner?" she suggested. "We can talk. Everyone's here." Then he added that Valeria was ready to apologize. That word, apologize, sounded strange to me. It didn't seem to fit in his vocabulary, at least not sincerely. I asked him if this had anything to do with the joint account. "No," he replied. "This is about family. Let's not let this divide us." I told him I'd think about it. She replied with a simple, "Okay." But I already knew she wasn't going to go. The next day, I received a message from my mother. It began with, "I know you're hurting," that kind of phrase used to reinterpret someone's boundaries as symptoms of something else. He said Valeria was under a lot of pressure, that being a mother was difficult, that sometimes people say things they don't mean, that deep down we were still siblings. And then the real reason came out. He told me that Valeria's husband had received a new job offer and that they needed the Honda again, just for a while, until they could get back on their feet. He said he'd be doing them a huge favor. He said I wouldn't have to worry about the maintenance, this time they'd take care of everything. She wrote, "You always felt good helping others. Let yourself feel that again." I stared at that line. That was it. That was the basis of their strategy from the beginning, to trust that I would once again assume the role they assigned me. The reliable one. The one who sacrifices himself without being asked. The one who always pays, always forgives, always returns. I didn't answer. Instead, I took the spare key out of the drawer. I drove the Honda to a dealership in another town and sold it. No drama, no big gesture. Just some paperwork in order, a decent offer, and a signature that freed me more than any therapy session I'd ever been dragged into. The guy at the dealership asked me why I was selling it. I replied, it was about time. That was it. When I got home, I logged into my bank account and confirmed that the joint account was completely closed. Nothing outstanding, no associated cards. She just disappeared. Then, one by one, I blocked their numbers. Mom's, Dad's, Valeria's. Even as I was doing it, it seemed extreme to me. Like I was flipping an irreversible switch. But it wasn't a sudden impulse. It wasn't revenge. It was self-respect. 20 years late. They crossed a line they didn't even know existed. And now they were on the other side. I haven't heard from either of them since. No letters, no unexpected visits. Nothing. I don't know what they're telling everyone else. Maybe I lost my mind. Maybe I need help. Maybe I turned my back on those who loved me most. But I sleep better now. I no longer jump every time the phone rings. I no longer check my balance every morning as an automatic reflex. I no longer suffer the constant exhaustion that comes from always being the backup plan. Valeria has her life. And I, finally, have mine back. 2 months passed in such profound silence that I began to think they had finally let me go. It wasn't that I believed they had changed, but rather that they had turned their attention elsewhere. Valeria always needed a new crisis. And perhaps I no longer fit into their script. Little by little, I began to feel like myself again. Not the person they had molded for their own convenience, but the one I was slowly rebuilding in the silence. She was sleeping better, working more clearly. She had even started dating someone. Something she hadn't had the energy for in years. And then, out of nowhere, a letter arrived. Not a message, not a card, a real letter, handwritten, carefully folded in an envelope with my name written in Valeria's unmistakable handwriting. I stood in the kitchen for a long time, just looking at it. Inside, it started with something unexpected. I suppose you think I'm the villain in all this. No apologies, no admission of guilt. Just that one sentence, as if we were discussing a movie and not a manipulation that had been going on for years. She said she wanted to explain herself. That she was in a difficult situation and didn't know how to move forward. That she leaned on me because I was the only person who always kept her word. And that, at some point, he stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a solution. He said the lies about the joint account got out of hand, that he hadn't intended to keep them up for so long, but that when I found out the truth, he didn't know how to back down without looking bad. And toward the end, he wrote, "I'm not asking for money. I just want to know if we'll ever talk again." I read it twice. Then, a few days later, once more. She wasn't exactly manipulative. Not this time. But it wasn't a genuine apology either. There was no, "I was wrong." Just a long explanation of how difficult her life had become without me supporting her. I didn't reply. Instead, I went for a walk, reflected on everything that had happened, everything I had allowed. And then I wrote a note. Just a few lines. I didn't send it, but I keep it in a drawer. To read it when I start wondering if I was too harsh. It says, "It's not that I hate you. It's that, finally, I love myself enough to stop letting you wear me down."